Jessica is actually my support worker through Access to Work. So while she's here with us, it's actually myself that will be doing the presentation today. Thank you for all choosing to come to this talk as well, because I know there are some really great talks going on in the other rooms, so I really appreciate you giving the time to this topic and this conversation. So today we are going to look at supporting service users who mask. So first of all, let's just think about masking in general and what it is. So, we all wear a mask of some sort, whether it's our professional masks in a professional capacity, whether it's the mask that we wear with our friends and family at times that we're okay when we're not. We all have different masks that we're wearing. So the aim of today's session is to have a look at what is masking itself, what's going on beneath that mask, and how we can support service users who mask. If you're here as an individual who you might be just looking at, how can you ask for further support from those who support you if you're masking? And just to be very clear, I'm autistic, so I'm very much masking to be up here right now, and this is my mask. This is my presentation, Sophie well put together mask. If a little bit discombobulated due to being on the exhibition floor just some minutes ago and then dealing with a tech issue, but we're here, we're rolling, there are people smiling at me, so I feel safe and comfortable. This feels like a good space. So just wanted to start off really by telling you a little bit about myself. So my name is Sophie Mason and I'm the founder of Thinkedi, which stands for Think EDI, Think Equity, Diversity and Inclusion. And until a year ago, I worked as an organisational development manager in the NHS. So that means that my job was to basically bring together the culture of people in the organisation, to help people understand each other, to make the organisation resilient through change, which is really interesting when you consider that I'm autistic and yet I found myself in a role where I was supporting other people to be resilient through change, something I'm not particularly strong at myself. However, what I did learn is actually perhaps I am very strong at being resilient because I face these challenges every single day. I've got the coping skills and the tools to be able to navigate those. So being able to share that experience with others to help them process and manage change is really useful. So Thinkedi and why I set it up. One of my jobs in the NHS was to look at equality monitoring. And I was told to try and find out what the diversity of our organisation was. So I ended up looking through old paper folders. I ended up looking through old email addresses from line managers who'd now left and gone to other organisations. But there were places where we just couldn't find this information about our employees, the very people who we work side by side with every day. We didn't understand. And if we don't understand somebody, how can we support them as an individual? And I guess how this comes in line with masking is that we're all wearing this professional mask. We all want to appear competent and confident at our jobs. It's important, right? Because we want to stay in our careers because it's part of survival. We want to keep earning money. We want to stay in our jobs if we can. But to do that, we have to wear this mask. And the majority of us probably somewhat feel like imposters in that role. And that mask that we are wearing, organisations need to be able to look beyond that mask and understand individuals, never mind diagnosis or particular characteristics. What do these individuals need? And this became really clear to me looking for this information. I am also a part-time wheelchair user. So I have a condition called hemiplegic migraines where I become paralysed on the left side of my body. So thank goodness I didn't need my wheelchair today, but it was part of the risk assessment and we could have managed it if we needed to. I also have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos, so my joints basically bend backwards. Hopefully not all the way backwards. And, the collagen in my body is slightly different, so vessels, blood vessels and things like that, they are a bit floppier than they should be. So it makes me very tired, it causes additional pain. But it doesn't stop me, does it, Jess? So what was my point? Equality monitoring forms. This may happen a few times. So equality monitoring forms, and seeing that information, seeing what from the strategic level organisations need to drive change. When the organisation was asking me questions like, well, do we put money into looking at menopause support, or do we put our money into neurodivergence? Do we put our money into supporting unpaid carers in the workplace? And obviously the truth is everybody. But how do you divide that out in your organisation? And my answer was, well, you need to know who's in your organisation first. So in looking for all this diversity information and not being able to find it, I started to ask the question, well, why don't we, even when we did get that information, there were prefer not to say rates that were huge. 0.5% of people within our service had said that they had a disability. Now, we knew that 21% of the national demographic actually live with a disability, so it didn't add up. So what do we do as a strategy there? Do we now employ 19.5% more people, to bring that up to the right quota? Or is it perhaps more likely that there are more individuals within our organisation that are disabled, but either don't know it, or they're too scared to say it? Or was it that we were getting that information from them prior to interview and they were worried that they'd be discriminated against if they did mention it? And the answer, I think, is all the above. So I decided that what we needed was a digital tool that collected this information and shared it amongst, and shared it as a collective anonymous to the organisation, so that no individual would be singled out. Singled out? Thanks. So that's what I did, and that's what I've created over the last year. It's now finished in its MVP and trial stages, and it's going to be out on the market as a tool for organisations to use as of November, December this year. So it's very exciting. And I guess from that point, I just want to say that lived experience really does drive innovation, and we need to support more people with lived experience who have the answers to these things, because they are able to communicate the things that we need to meet those goals, somewhere in between. Anyway, that is enough about me. So just some of the wonderful events I've been involved in the last year, speaking at Wales Tech Week. And lots of things like that. So that's me. Back to masking. So in Japanese culture, they say that we have 3 faces. There's the first face that we show to the world, the second face that we show to our close friends and family, and then our third face, which we never show anyone. And I think everybody can get on board with that as an idea. So why do we mask? Why does everybody mask? Well, it could be that we're trying to hide something. So hiding our fear, hiding our anxiety, hiding our pain, our lack of competence, lack of confidence, our vulnerability, sadness or depression or anger. All of those things in line with hiding our trauma, hiding the things that we've been through and our negative experiences in the past. And the more that trauma happens to us, the more we have to mask to be able to go out and face the next thing. And the irony in that being that the more we're able to go out and face those things and be empowered, myself today in front of groups of you, again, seeing lots of nods and smiles and lots of support, the more that mask comes down and the more we feel safe and psychologically safe to feel vulnerable in front of other people. So that's hiding. We also mask to protect. Protecting our vulnerability, our sense of self and our reputation, but also to protect our egos, so our sense of self in that sense. And this can happen in a professional capacity, where perhaps we don't have the answers to something that a service user wants. Maybe the policies don't allow us to do that thing that could help them. Maybe we've had a really stressful day and we're struggling to understand and connect with this person in front of us. Ego can come into play because, of course, we're wearing our own masks whilst we're interacting with them with their masks. But what's different about a neurodivergent mask? So with neurodivergent masks, the mask is about difficulty in being able to be as simple as things as being in the room itself in order to speak or communicate, having your needs met, avoiding discrimination, and actually being able to function. So I just want to draw that distinction because we're all aware that we mask. And we're aware that people with neurodivergence or autism mask as well. But there is a clear distinction between our needs in that interaction and the neurodivergent person. We might be trying to protect our egos, protecting our anxiety, but it's important to understand that these individuals might be trying to get their basic needs met. So one of the things we do at Thinkedi, when I started my journey trying to build this digital app, I realised that only 2% of funding in the UK actually goes to female entrepreneurs. A really shocking statistic. There actually are no statistics on how much funding goes to disabled entrepreneurs, and I think that kind of speaks to itself. So as I pitched and pitched at these events, funders would come and tell me what a brilliant idea this was, but would not give me the money to be able to develop and create this tool, which will be huge. And the reason they won't do that is because of assumptions like, well, you're disabled, what happens if you become ill next year and you can't do this and you can't see it through? Show them the risk assessments and explain how I'm going to manage all of this, but still, it's hard for them to put their money where there seems to be a risk. And so one of the things that we did, being the kind of person who I won't let this stop me, it's like, well, what skills can I lean on then that can allow me to generate income to our business? So Thinkedi started providing services, training and coaching, neurodiversity coaching, including this sensory web tool, which we use as part of our coaching, which helps people to understand their sensory profiles and how they move between those sensory states and how they transition between those sensory states. We've had some incredible feedback, some of the best feedback this week that we've had around how we use this sensory state and how it's changing people's lives. And this was just a service that we're providing to be able to bring money into the business. And it just goes to show that innovation breeds innovation, and there's just so much to be gained from learning from people with lived experience. So one of the things we talk about with sensory processing as well, and the masks that people will wear with sensory processing, is that sensory processing isn't just an autistic thing. It actually comes from all of these different, my words are going, they'll come back, they will come back in a moment. All of these different conditions. It's that thing scrolling behind me every time I look around. Anyway, yes, all of these different conditions can create forms of sensory processing, including PTSD. So it's important to know that this isn't just neurodivergence in the sense of autistic or a lifelong condition, it can be a transient condition as well. So, the medical model of disability. The reason I'm talking about this is I want us to understand the difference between utilising the medical model and the social models of disability. So in the medical model, the disabled person is the problem, and it's all about diagnosing and looking at the deficits of that individual in comparison to the social model of disability, which is actually recognising that the person isn't disabled by their condition, they're disabled by a world that hasn't been built to fit them yet. One day, and I think a lot of people in this room are helping us in this revolution and this movement towards this, one day neither models need exist, because if we can get the universal model of social disability in place, where we understand our adjustments that we can make in services, then everybody can have equal access and equity. What does this look like? So if we're looking at the medical model, some of the kind of things that I have heard said, whether to me or about me, for some reason people think that autistic people can't hear them. We can. We've actually sometimes got very good hearing. So she doesn't look like other autistic people I've seen. Maybe her diagnosis is wrong. That's my mask. I very much am diagnosis. I very much am autistic. What else? She's very understanding. She won't mind. So part of my mask is that, I'm not saying I'm a mean person or anything like that, but part of my mask is people wouldn't often assume that I can set boundaries. They will see me as a very nice person and a very kind of easygoing person. But I've had to learn to set boundaries with people, and it's very hard, but people don't see it coming when I do have to set a boundary. So quite often it's meant for, here's one example of that. So I have to have frequent lumbar punctures as part of my one of my conditions. And one of the doctors had said, "Oh, you don't mind if I don't use gloves. We've done this lots of times before." And I said, "I'm very sorry. I don't want you to do this procedure." And I said, I'll come back another day and see another doctor. And their response to that was that, I'd flipped and they didn't see it coming because I'm so nice and so chatty. But there is a sense of a grey area where there's an expectation that because people are nice and they have that mask on, that people can take advantage. So yes, I might be understanding, but I will mind if you don't wear gloves. Okay, she went quiet. She must have nothing to say. Jess, my support worker through Access to Work, knows very well when I go quiet, it's because I have something to say, something probably very important, but I probably need some time to reflect on that and think about what is the best way to actually approach that in the right situation. She's two-faced, so I have heard this from people that I have made complaints against. For serious breaches of misconduct, I don't have time to go about complaining, in between talks and lumbar punctures and building a digital app. Where would I have the time to go about complaining about everything? But when I do have to complain about something, it's something that's very, very serious breach. And again, because they see me as this nice person, they think that that's totally different. It's not. So I guess what I'm saying with this is when you're meeting people and you're speaking to them and they seem very nice and sweet, that's not an excuse to reduce your competency or to start cutting corners. That person, deserves and demands just as much respect and care and attention as anybody else. She seems to be coping is another one. People see me and they know that I'm in this job. They see on social media that if I can come into a room and I can talk to all of you people, then I must be doing okay. What they don't see is the 2 days of shutdown and social isolation that I had to do to prepare myself for today, and the 2 days of shutdown that I've had to plan in afterwards in order to be here today. I am here, though, because I am passionate about this and because I have something to say and something that hopefully each of you will take something away from today, back to your own organisations, your own lives, and be able to do something. And I think that's worthy. I'm also here today because I know that plenty of you in this room also have something great to say. And I would like to see you up here next year saying what you need to say, because that's what we need to do. We all need to be able to have that space to talk about our lived experience. Doesn't mean I'm coping, though. Difficult, again, that kind of goes into the other situations. Intense. I'm a big board game player. I do love a bit of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm also a singer. I have written a novel, which is for sale upstairs. I may seem intense to some people, but to the people I'm close with, that's what they're like too. We're just geeks together, and that works for us. And I just think, let be, essentially. She is broken is another one. People hear about my past traumas. Went through a lot as a child. I won't go into it for not traumatising anyone else. A lot of conditions, my neurodivergence, and an awful lot of discrimination. And when I tell doctors my conditions, when I have to tell them everything for the first time all over again in order to get my needs met, a lot of them don't know what to do, and they just think, you know, I can see them just going, I have no answers for you, you're just broken, you know. And of course, there is a part of me that has internalized that for a long time, but I'm working very hard not to do that anymore. So yeah, this model, it's me, hi, it's me the problem, it's me, bit of Taylor Swift for us all. That would be me as the problem. So what can we do if we had changed this into the social model? How about looking at, she feels vulnerable and she doesn't trust me yet, as, you know, why I'm being quiet or not really describing my needs. I must not take advantage of her trust and her good nature. There is something or a lot that she's not saying. So if someone's going quiet, perhaps there's something that they're not saying. If, you know, we're thinking, oh, this seems like a very different side of someone, for us to consider, to get to this point, they must have been really affected by this issue, and I need to pay attention to that, take some accountability for what I'm going to do, because I will always say the best way to de-escalate any situation, listen, take some accountability, and signpost to what you're going to do next. That's all people need in the beginning, and actually follow through with what you've said that you will do. You don't need to completely solve that entire situation for the service user or for the person you're supporting, but you need to do those things. You need to listen, take accountability, and actually follow through with the next steps. Don't mistake masking for coping is another big one. Sometimes, as I said, you won't know what to do when you're supporting a service user, and that's okay. You might even be neurodivergent yourself. You might have had a bereavement. You might be caring for an elderly family member or a young family member with disabilities. We are all individuals. We've all got so much going on in our life. It doesn't matter what we look like on the outside. Every single person in this room has something going on. You are all individuals with unique and complex lives. And we need to remember that when we're interacting with each other, because we are all wearing masks. So again, giving people the ability to talk and share about their experiences and just listen rather than seeing them as difficult and challenging. And if everybody in this room were to go away today and do just one thing, to stand up to just one small thing that they'd seen and take it through to the end, the change that could amount from that is huge. You don't need to take on the whole world as an individual to change it. You all just need to go away and do one small thing, and we can build a movement together. So, I know that we're running a little bit out of time now, so just to say that here are some tangible things that you can do for your service users. One of the most important being to ask them for what adjustments or accommodations they need in the service. Often they won't know. Often there may be a stigma to them asking for those things, so you can direct them to the Thinkedi website, where we have a free tool where they can go through, using the social model of disability, different adjustments that are commonly asked for in the workplace or from services. It breaks it down into visual, hearing, 20 different sections, including taking medications, etc. And then they're able to send that as an email generated into a letter to their employer or to a service user. And that's also all available through using speech-to-text software or any of the screen readers, and ability to change fonts, colours, sizes, and all of that as well. So that's it from me today. I'll skip over these last slides that I would have talked about, but I talked too much. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope to see you all again.